Hi, Karen with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a scrapbook layout for Kitaholic's kits, and I am using the August 2022 kit for this one today. And I am going to take a little bit of a journey on this one today. I say that a lot, I know, but this layout I had absolutely no plan for. So I love it sometimes when I can just sit down and I haven't thought about what I'm going to create, and I then work with what comes together. All I knew is that I wanted to incorporate the stencil and using the wonderful paste that we got this month, and that was it. I didn't have any other idea. I had the photos in mind. I'm using photos from my trip from several years ago that I had with Jacob to the UK. And these are photos from when we were wandering around York. And that was as far as I got with my mind and the planning. I pulled out a couple of the pattern papers, thinking about what I might do. And then as I was putting the paste through the stencil, I started thinking, I'm just going to create a background, my own very handmade background. So this is where it started growing from there. I have not used gesso on my cardstock because I didn't really want to use a lot of water on this one because I am going to actually end up coating basically entire background. But I wasn't going to do like a water wash. I want it to be quite grungy. And you'll start to see what I mean as we move forward. So I used through the stencil that gorgeous, it's almost like a mulberry color, isn't it? It's just such a beautiful maroony type color, that paste. And then I'm adding and using the gold paste that we got in the mixed media kit as well. Now for this one, I'm just using the packaging technique. So I've smushed some down and I've added water and I've mixed it quite heavily, but I've left it quite thick as well. So I'm just going to smush that all over the page. And I know this looks like an absolute mess and you're thinking, what on earth is she doing? This is going to be ridiculous. But bear with me. I promise you that by adding these layers, this is something that I do generally when I create an art journal page. Creating layers. I love doing that when I'm creating that. So I'm basically what I'm doing is I'm creating an art journal page, but to be a scrapbook page. So once that was all dry, and I did dry that naturally, I really like the paste. I didn't want the paste to sort of blister. So I've allowed that to dry. And then I felt that it did need some toning down. So I've just used some acrylic paint there. In white, and I'm smushing that across the page, sort of thinning it out where I can, and then I've got a wet wipe there that I'm then just sort of lifting some of that off the page. So it's just giving that dull, grungier sort of feel to it, and I felt that it was really going to suit with the ancient areas that we were in York. I mean, York is, full of old buildings and old windows, and that's why I used the stencil for this one, because it reminded me of some of the windows and the arches that you see as you're wandering around the streets. So that's where I was heading with this. So I did have 3 photos in mind, but two were portrait and one was landscape, so I couldn't quite get it on the page. So I decided to keep this down to, you'll see in a moment, this has just got 2 photos on the page. But I wasn't done with my background. So this is what I was talking about around layers. So I'm adding here some random stamping. These are just some stamps from, I've got a bunch of stamps that sits on my desk all the time, and these just give some dimension. Some of these stamps I've never actually used before. I've had them in my stash for years, and they're just giving, and I'm using some archival ink here as well, so it's not going to run and bleed if I do start to add on any extra ink or waters to the page as well. And I'm just adding through here and just really roughing this up and really grunging it up, like I said before. I still think at this stage it's looking like a hot mess. And it really is. But I know that I'm going to cover quite a bit of this up with my clusters and things like that. But I do actually really love how this is coming together. It was something that was not expected. It was certainly, because I often do layouts that are really bright and all that sort of stuff, but I really loved this darker sort of tone, and I think it works well with the photos, and it sort of works well with the trip to the UK was always dark and rainy and all that sort of stuff because we were there in winter. So I think it sort of suits it quite well. And I do soften it up here in just a moment when I start adding the paper layers. I've added in some white splatters as well, and I use just the acrylic paint again for that, which I watered down, and then I'm just watering down some of the paste as well, and just splattering that around the page. And I allow that to dry and dry naturally. And then my final piece of the puzzle for the background is inking all the edges in some black ink as well. So that's a really messy, inky job as well. So carrying through that whole idea of that grunge component of the page. And here's where I soften it up. So I'm using that gorgeous doily that we got in the kit this month. It's so that's oversized type doily. And I felt that then I could create the layers just to be sitting in the middle of the page. So you're not going to see that entire background. And I'm just adding in a few more of the black stamping there, because once I've put that doily down, I realized I hadn't taken that down far enough. So just adding in a little bit more just to make sure that it's sort of peeking through and past the doily. I'm using some of the background paper there. That's from my previous rainbow layout actually. That's the opposite, the B side of the rainbow paper. That gorgeous sort of mustardy yellow color. And then I'm just adding in some of the tags around different sections of underneath the photos. And that's pretty much how I bulk up the layers for this one. I'm adding in some of the tones from my photos and the tones from the background. So there's sort of like little maroon tags, there's some orange, there's a little bit of green, because I'm also going to use some of these florals as well. Now I do hide where I can the blue components of these florals. Now I could have fussy cut the blue ones out, but I couldn't be bothered. So I just made sure they're sitting under the photos when I do stick them down. And I do pop a lot of that up on foam as well, just to add some dimension to the page. Now there's lots of layers there, as you can see, and so it's starting to get quite heavy now, this layout, which is why I decided to put those florals in, just to give it a softer touch as well. So I'm just adding those florals just randomly around the page. And then I'm going to keep everything really simple after this. I'm curling up the edges of all the tags that I can, just to give that dimension as well, and just gluing everything down with my Scotch tacky glue. I'm going to create a really simple title for this one as well, just adding a couple of hearts from the puffy hearts on the page as well. And the sticker sheet of the Pink Fresh one had just that tag there that says time together. So I stuck that down at the top of the right-hand photo. And then they had a sentiment that said something wandering. I can't remember what the first word was. The sticker sheet's not in front of me, but I thought that was a perfect component of the layout. We were wandering the streets of York. So my title is Wandering York. So I'm just going through my stash of thickers and all sorts of letters that I've got here to finish off my title with York. And that's pretty much going to finish my layout. So a little bit different for me this month, a bit dark, but I do feel like I've lightened it up a little bit by using those florals on the page. And I do finish off with some splatters, some more white splatters across the page as well. I should also mention before I finish, I will absolutely have in the description box below all the details to the store, where you can get all the information about either subscribing or purchasing one of the kits. They're always every month chock full of product. And one of the great things about the Kitaholics kits is we always get such a diverse range to think of things to choose from. So this collection this month has been very much, we've had some Bo Bunny, we've had some Vicky Bouton, we've had some Heidi Swap, we've had Obed Marshall, and we've even had some Maggie Holmes. So it all just works so beautifully together. The tones and the colors will always in some way be able to be used together, so which is just absolutely fabulous. So one finishing touch there was just to add some string to that one main tag at the very top there, and I am all done. So as always, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I've got some close-ups to share, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.